If you're thinking about getting started with meat rabbits, here's some things I wish that I knew before I got started. One of the biggest things that I was not prepared for when getting my meat rabbits was how much I was going to like it. I never saw myself as a rabbit person. I made fun of rabbit people all the time. They nerd out. They get all genetics and these traits, and they start nerding out, and I would make fun of rabbit people all the time. So I did not think that I was going to like them. And when I got my rabbits and I started doing some breeding, I started getting some genetic traits, I started seeing what they were talking about, I was like, these are pretty cool. And then I have a continuous meat source. I have meat growing and I have some in the freezer. And as I use it up in the freezer, this stuff that's growing is going to end up in the freezer. And I just have this small space in my freezer that is continually filling and emptying. And I don't have to save up a big space for like a whole hog or a whole cow. I have this small space that is just quickly cycling through. And it really does taste like chicken. Just learn some new recipes, learn how to do the butchering and the cutting up, and before you know it, you're nerding out about your rabbits, telling people all the genetics, all the traits, how cute they are, how much fun they are, and how delicious they are, and you're going to start being that person that people are like, oh no, here comes a rabbit lady. Honestly, that's what I was not prepared for. Me personally. For most people, they're not prepared to do the butchering part because the cute factor is legitimately an issue. But for me, I was not expecting to actually enjoy and start nerding out. The breeds. Not all breeds are the same. You can eat every breed of rabbit, but they're going to have different growth. And for a meat rabbit, we want something that's going to grow fast. We want a large litter and a calm temperament. How about cage setup? You want something secure so that predators are not getting into your babies. You also want something, ow, 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 I don't want to hold you, you're just a ball of claws. You also want something that's going to be easy to maintain, keep clean, because that keeps your rabbits healthier. Now, your first cage setup is not going to be your last. This is all a progressive system. My first setup had a combination of solid floor and wire. And what I noticed with the solid floor area is that was where they chose to use the bathroom. No matter how hard I tried to keep that clean, it was just impossible. That urine is so incredibly strong that it's like straight ammonia, and it gets up in their fur and burns their feet. And then you'll start dealing with sore hocks and other health conditions. So obviously not ideal for the rabbits to be in their own filth. And that's why I've chosen to do wire floors. You can get a 14 gauge wire, that's the best, but that's really hard to find. So a 16 gauge is going to be perfectly acceptable. You can give them a resting mat if you're worried about their feet. They're really not going to have any issues if they've got a good foot pad. That means that the fur on the bottom of their feet is nice and thick, and it's like wearing shoes. So the wire doesn't bother them at all. I had more problems with sore hocks before I had the wire. Since I put the wire in there and nobody's has solid floors, I have no problem with their feet. They're all very healthy, very clean. So just making sure that it's the proper gauge wire, that means how thick it is, and that the spacing of the wire is big enough that their poops will fall through, but not so big that their feet will fall through. So optimal size is 1/2 inch by 1 inch. Mosquitoes. Oh my heck, I'm getting covered in them. What was I? Okay. Location of your rabbits is very important. You don't want them getting too hot. Rabbits don't do well in heat. They do a lot better in the cold. So having them on the north side of the structure, as long as you can keep them blocked from that north wind in the wintertime, they're going to be just fine. Having them in the shade is the best place. A nice deep shade is optimal. So as long as you've got them in a nice ventilated area and they're staying cool, they're going to be really comfortable. Wintertime's a lot easier because they handle winter really well. The saying that breeding like rabbits, well, that doesn't always happen. It's not always the case because sometimes you'll have a missed pregnancy or you'll have a doe that refuses the buck. I bred both of these moms at the same time. This mom had a litter and this mom did not. I bred them both the same time. I watched that there was a fall off. And this one didn't have any babies, but this one did. Little tiny babies. When you have a successful breeding, and you know, because look at some of my other videos, I talk about the fall off. When you've had that fall off, you know that it's been a successful breeding. And then you need to keep records so that you know exactly when she's going to have her babies. and you can have her nesting box ready for that day. If they don't have a nesting box, you're going to have a whole litter on the wire, and that's a big problem. These are 2-week-old. Aren't these so cute? They're really active at this stage. Their eyes are fully open, they're fully furred, and just adorable. They do have sharp teeth at this stage, and they will bite you to just nibble, and they're checking out their surroundings. Now, what about when it comes time to butcher these? There's definitely a mental side to butchering. The emotional attachment that you get because you've raised something from birth. You've cared for it, and you've made sure that it was comfortable and fed and watered and safe. And then the mental part of turning it into food, it's going to be challenging. We've just got to do our best to be as fast and as humane as possible and just have gratitude for what these are bringing to us. All right, but on a more fun note, how much does it cost to feed these little things? They're so cute. Well, their feed to meat ratio is about a 4-to-1. That means 4 pounds of feed for 1 pound of rabbit meat. That means it's going to take about 20 pounds of rabbit feed to get a 5-pound rabbit. Ow, so scratchy and nibbly. So depending on where you get your feed, it's going to be a different cost for you. And then you're also going to need some hay and the water. Water doesn't cost that much, especially if you set up a rain system and you have a rain barrel, then it's free water. All right, but what about when your rabbit gets sick? Rabbits hide illness really well. Oh boy. Now we have a cat up here with some baby bunnies. The harsh reality is that when there is sickness in your rabbitry, you really have to think about the genetics. We really only want to keep strong genetics. So if you have a lot of sickness, if they seem to be real finicky about their hay, but everybody else is fine on the hay, but you have a certain batch of rabbits that just was not doing well on the hay, you probably have some poor genes coming out. You have to mentally and emotionally prepare yourself to cull the bad genes. Even if it's a really nice rabbit that has good temperament, had good grow rate, but if it's just susceptible to getting sick constantly, it's not genetics that you want to pass down. It's normal to get attached, and you're probably going to end up with more rabbits than you thought you were going to. And that brings me to my next point. When you do have successful breeding, you're going to have rabbits out the wazoo. You're going to outgrow all of your cages incredibly fast. All of your spare time is going to go towards making more rabbit cages or setting up more rabbitry area because you're going to outgrow so fast. If you have just 1 buck and 2 does and you're breeding those on a regular basis, that every 6 weeks you're having a new litter, from 6 to 9 babies in each litter, think of how quickly you're going to outgrow whatever system you have set up. The whole reason I got into meat rabbits was because I wanted the compost addition, and I knew that they were a good meat source. I understood all of the feed to meat ratio, sustainability, like it all makes sense. Academically, it's perfect on paper, right? And then you bring them home and you're like, oh, I got a great compost system going on. I've got a really great garden growing now and tons of cute baby rabbits. And then what? And then you got to start eating them because you have to manage the size. Oh, did they scare you? So the importance of keeping breeding records is that you don't want to start going across the genetic line. So having some way that you're tracking whose babies are where and what rabbits you have kept so that you're not going across the genetic line. It's okay to go down the tree, but you don't go from branch to branch. So siblings with siblings are a no, parent to sibling are okay. Whether you get an app or you just write it down in a notebook and on a calendar so you know when you have babies due, and you can make sure that their nesting box is ready to go. And finally, don't wait to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. You're not going to be an expert until you've gotten your hands dirty. So learn what you can and then just jump in. You're going to learn more in the field than you ever did academically or watching people's videos on YouTube. And you're also going to run into things that you never even thought you needed to research. They'll teach you what you need to know. But as long as you've gotten some good genetics and you have good grow out, and you have a nice temperament, just learn as you go, and mistakes are part of it. You're gonna do just fine. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to help you guys. If you want a full tutorial of how we do the butchering humanely and swiftly, I have a video for that you can go check out. If you want to see how I set up my cages and how I build my rabbitry, I'll have a video coming shortly for that too, so follow along. Remember to like this video, share it with anyone else who's thinking about getting rabbits. Say bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Seriously, your claws are wrecking my leg right now. Ow. Cats. Ow! Sharp! Would you stop doing that? All right, kitty cat. Time to dump off. Goodbye.